What's up, people? How y'all doing, man? Long time no see this way. We don't have any fancy there's no fancy uh get up today. That's gonna be tomorrow. This one is just really talking about some of what Coach Prime said, and seeing how people wanna take what he said and run with it as if there was no um validity for his opinion. Um what I will preface before really getting into this conversation about Prime and his choice of words is every single coach has their preference. Um, you can choose to like the preference or not like the preference. This is a large part of really researching and recruiting that people tend to not want to engage in. You have to research your coach. You have to know their ins and their outs before you really commit to the university. What Prime led us into, and I'll run his comments so that those who have not specifically heard it can hear it. But what Prime led us into is kind of the conversation and the dialogue that goes on inside of the coaching's room when the evaluations are happening and people are being put on the board and depth charts and stuff like that are being created. Some of those factors come in about decision making and home life and all that stuff. It definitely plays a part when you're talking about the recruiting process. So for those who have not heard what Prime said, you guys got to excuse me because we are at home. I'm in the best seat here, the rocking chair. So this is where a lot of people do their best coaching from this seat, never actually stepping on the field. But here you go, right here. So let me let you listen to what Prime said, and then we'll talk about it a little bit.
Can you tell who that is just by talking to him now that you're walking in the living rooms and you're seeing more and more and more?
We have different attributes: smart, tough, fast, disciplined with character.
Yep.
We're looking at now quarterbacks are different.
Yeah.
We want mother, father, dual parent.
Mm-hmm.
We want that kid to be 3, 5 and up because he's got to be smart.
Mm-hmm.
Not bad decisions off the field at all, because he has to be a leader of men. It's so many different attributes and what we look for when we see a quarterback. And you would love a coach's son. Somewhere that the coach has coached him, and I'm not going down my road. I see you smiling because
I know who your quarterback is
he's
right
talking
now.
about my son. I didn't just build a template for my son, but that's what really we look for in quarterbacks. Different positions are different. Like O lineman, I look for dual parent homes,
Right.
a strong father that they adhered to,
Right.
Smart kid, at least 3.3 and above.
You're also describing Hurts.
Yeah,
as well.
tough.
I mean,
physical. I mean, offensive lineman. Defensive lineman is totally opposite.
what do you mean?
Single mama, trying to get it. He's on free lunch. I mean, I'm talking about just trying to make it. He trying to rescue mama. Like mama barely made the flight.
Trying to get out the mud.
And I want him to just go get it. It's a whole different attributes that you look for in different positions, and we have that stuff just chronicled. We know what we want, and we go get it.
So the way Prime said it might have been wrong. What he said, not necessarily wrong. And the reason why is because as a coach, for those who do not know, because this is also streaming on YouTube, I am a coach. I have been a head coach, a college coach, position coach, and I've had to recruit players, and I've actually sent players and had dialogue with coaches. One of the things that I have always said, and I will never give up on what I am saying to this point, is behind closed doors, you do not know the narrative that is being had with coach and potential coach. There is always a narrative with a player about a player behind closed doors. The first question that a recruiter will ask your coach is, "Tell me about his home life." The reason why they say "tell me about the home life" is just about what you heard from Deion Sanders. Coaches want to know what they're about to get into. They want to know who the decision maker is, who helps to influence these decisions. Is it mom? Is it dad? Is it who's inside the house? Is grandma raising them? because those decisions go into when there's crises. Who does this student athlete speak to? Who does this student athlete talk to? And then also it lets you know a little bit about the foundation of the student athlete, because the apple, as the saying says, the apple doesn't fall too far away from the tree. So when he's saying he didn't say he needed both parents in home. He said he would just like to have both parents active. A lot of people lost their mind about that. But what he's looking for possibly is balance. And let's also say that this is his preference. Some people may not feel that way, but he did do something that parents need to pay attention to. He threw out a GPA. He wants his quarterbacks to have a 3.5 or better. 3.5 or better lets you know that, one, he's serious about his academics, and then also that lets you know he has the ability to learn what's going on and he cares about what he's learning. Why? School is not fun for everybody, right? So school is not fun for all that is involved. Excuse me. Yeah, school is not fun for everybody that's involved. But if a player or a student athlete is able to excel in the school academically, then when I'm teaching you something that's fun, you should be able to pick it up with without any problems. Playing the quarterback position, which is what he was speaking of, there's a lot of decisions that need to be made at a moment's time, split second. A lot of parents have no idea about the conversations from the booth to the sideline to the field. There's a lot that goes into having to be able to problem solve and in the matter of less than 40 seconds. So 3.5, he wants to be able to see how your processing goes and all that stuff. Once again, this is Prime's preference. Is it right? Is it wrong? That's what's going to be for his program. So it's important for you to kind of know that. Also, when he spoke about the offensive line, each position has characteristics that carry over. What I mean by that, you do want to make sure that your offensive line, once again, is intelligent as far as problem solving, being able to process quickly. Because offense, unlike defense, there's a lot that go. Well, that's not fair. There's a lot that goes into defense too, as far as processing. But offensively, you have a split second once you get the play to be able to decipher what you need to do, who you need to block, and where you need to go. So you tend to have those guys on the offensive line that do have your higher GPAs and all that. And once again, this is locker room talk. People got mad at Coach Prime for saying what is usually said inside of the locker room. This is just a small smidge of what coaches talk about. You'll hear me say and hear me type on social media, coaches talk to coaches. These are the conversations that coaches are having about your student athletes. So you need to be mindful of that. I have what where Prime kind of lost me, and when he said, on defensive side, he wants a single mom, kid barely making it and hunger. Well, I've coached kids who on both sides of the ball who have had single parent homes and have both, parents in the house. That doesn't necessarily change their hunger and their drive. But I got what he was saying, because amongst the coaching world, I understood. He wants a guy that has what they call, coaches say, he has a motor. Having a motor is not necessarily tied to living conditions at home, but not going to say they don't play a part. When you know you're playing and the only opportunity that you have or you feel that you may have is playing football, you go about it a little bit different. There's a lot of student athletes that have a different drive when they know that this is my way out of the situation that I may be living in. So is Prime right about that? I don't necessarily think it should have been. It should have. I don't think it should have been discussed openly, especially once he noticed the men laughing. Once they started laughing and all that, it's really not funny. Uh, Especially when parents, are out here doing the best that they can for student athletes to mock or joke. But once again, these realistic conversations are being had behind closed doors. I do have some information as a coach, as a head coach, and also as a college coach that I would like to share. Just as far as like flags, man. Because there are some flags that parents need to be aware of. When I do these podcasts, I do them not necessarily for the coaches, because every coach has their own philosophy. Every coach has their own ideas of how they like, to recruit or how they like to train their players. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. For me, I like bigger running backs. So I like my running backs to be 195 and up and cut and ripped. That's what I like. When you show me a little running back, I if I'm in the position as a head coach in college and your son is 5'8" or below, unless his highlight tape is phenomenal, I don't want to really be bothered with him. That's not my type of guy. Now, some people may get offended by that. Oh, you should give him a shot. It's not my preference. It's not how I run my offense with a guy that's small. I need somebody bigger. So um, my recruiting angle is going to be for those that fit my system and those who fit my philosophy. You heard a glimpse of what Prime's philosophy is, which most coaches never, ever, ever, ever say. So the thing about Prime that he's giving us is he loves that camera, and he's not going to hide how he feels about what he's not going to hide his feelings behind, you know, any type of fake mystique. He speaks his mind, and you're going to take it or leave it because he's Prime. Um, some coaches may not be able to get away with that. If Nick Saban was to say that, it would still be talked about right now. Um, but am I going to say that Nick Saban and other coaches don't have their preference? Absolutely, they do. There is a whole guideline based upon positions that you have to check these boxes. And if you don't check these boxes, coaches aren't going to recruit you. So it's imperative to have that type of conversation. But I don't want this live to be too long. So let's go into for parents. And if there are coaches who are watching who would like to jump in on this, please do add your comments and I will post them up there. Once again, this is Coach Block, First and Goal podcast. For those who do not know, tune in tomorrow as well. This is just kind of like my armchair conversation or lazy boy conversation. Maybe I'll start doing these more often because it's kind of funny because, this is where guys like to criticize when they don't really know what's going on in chairs just like this. But let's go with the first one. All right. So the first thing that is a red flag is going to be it appears that the parent wants it more than the player. That's going to be a huge problem, right? So if the parent wants it more than the player, coaches can tell that. And how can coaches tell that? When you have sent out information and you're not hearing much from the player and the parent is doing a lot of the cohorting and conversation and leading these conversations, uh, for a coach, it's kind of hard to engage with that player. It's going to be a red flag for a lot of coaches, um, especially if the parent is in the forefront all the time. Which takes me to my next point for parents. And once again, these are just my points. Somebody may have theirs, and that's cool too. Here's the next one I have. It's going to be another red flag is if you're a helicopter parent. So if you're a helicopter parent, I kind of actually took time to write a comment about that one. So I put it in my phone. So let me kind of go over that, what I mean by helicopter parent. So nobody gets offended by what I'm saying. And if you do, I mean, it's cool, but just know that I don't mean any harm by it. So I wrote, college coaches want parents to be cheerleaders of their kids, of course. But there is nothing worse than a potential recruit sitting in the coach's office and the parents asking a ton of questions while the child sits there with little to say. Um, Basically looking like you're holding the parents or you're holding the student athlete's hand. So I wrote down this hand holding behavior does not benefit the student athlete at all for the long term. Coaches want to see a student athlete demonstrate leadership skills, which is one of the things that Prime definitely spoke about, right? He said, I want to see, leadership skills in my student athletes. So that's one of the things that you definitely want to make sure you're paying attention to. And, some people may listen to it, some people may not, but these are my opinions and you can go with it or not. Another red flag in recruiting, parents, that you need to know about is, um, pay attention if your child struggles with engaging in conversations with adults. The reason why this is a red flag is because, um, you're going to have to communicate with your coach, your teachers, um, and your any type of assistance that you have, your trainers. You're gonna have to be able to engage with these adults, um, professionally when you attend school. Nobody's gonna take the time to pull and extract these conversations from your child when there are things that are wrong. So the biggest thing that you wanna do is kinda see how your child is engaging and maturing for these opportunities, because you may want him to go to a big school, or he may want to go to a big school, but does he have big school mentality? Does he have big school conversation? And that's not saying that he has to be overly boisterous, but that is saying that he has to be able to carry himself in a certain way when somebody is addressing him, and then when he has to address others, because it is imperative to tell people what's going on with you, be it physically, be it emotionally, be it in class. These are all conversations that college coaches need to know that you can have to help them out, because there's a lot that goes into coaching and making sure what you see on the field goes right. And they need feedback from their student athletes to be able to communicate to them so that they can that they can be able to solve whatever the problems are. Now, how can you help your student athlete? Uh, One of the things that I wanted to put out there is, take an active approach in recruiting, but not the lead. So I always tell parents, you are the child's biggest advocate. So never, ever, ever think that you're not supposed to be involved. Anybody who tells you differently is ridiculous. As Coach Prime said, he wants to see the parents, mother, father, single mom. He wants to see the parents be involved with the process, or even just your child. And you can be there for your child, assuring that, transcripts are being sent off, assuring that the report cards is done, homework and all that, making sure letters and things, like, because kids will be kids, right? So you got to make sure correspondence are being done, all that good stuff. That's all important, and relative to being recruiting to be recruited. But correspondence should initiate from student athletes. It should not be initiated from parents. Your social media you're allowed to do all that stuff on your social media, but don't, push it to the coaches as if you are, that your player's agent. That's something that you don't want to do. For my younger parents, or parents who are younger in the process, 8th grade, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, even some ninth graders, hey, let's proactively help student athletes realize the importance of grades early. There's nothing worse than being in a position where you see a student athlete lose opportunity based upon a GPA that is affected from freshman and sophomore year. And that has happened to me. I have seen student athletes lose opportunity because they did not take their grades seriously until junior year. Um, and by that time, in a lot of cases, things are already on that slippery slope, and it's hard to get out of the hole once you're in that hole, because your core classes, your science, math, English, social studies, and a foreign language are the key classes that you need to have. So when you heard Prime talk about the guys that he wants to recruit, you notice offensively, he said he wants 3-5 for the quarterback, 3-3 for other positions. Um, that that means he wants high integrity, high student athletes out there. He doesn't want the guys that are struggling in that 2 range. And also, if you are a student athlete, that 2 range that you're in, there's a lot of kids in that 2 range. That makes it extremely hard for you to be recruited when you're in that pool of guys who got that 2 point this and 2 point that, because that's where a lot of talent is at. Remember, there's a million student athletes, and this is not a joke. There's a million student athletes that play football on Friday night. Only 6% move on to college football. So you want to make sure you're in that 6%. So you need to pay attention to those grades because that can separate you. Let me look at the comments real quick. I got comment from Mr. or actually not Mr. I'm sorry, Coach Pounds. Coach Pounds says, I have to see how independent the kid is. Does the parents have to sign in and fill out the paperwork? Is the kid a self-starter? Does the kid do chores or does the parents have to remind them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Great point. Great point. How do you live your life? Because once again, when you go off to school, there's nobody there to hold your hand. There's nobody there to make sure you do the things that you need to do right. You have to have these characteristics to be independent on your own. Coach Pounds is a former college coach as well, so he's telling you specifically. He was at St. Augustine's University here in Raleigh, North Carolina. So that is the comment of a college coach himself as well. Um, Hold on, I got another comment from Mr. Ziegler. Is there a parent to coach conversation etiquette? Absolutely, there is a parent to coach conversation etiquette. I'm gonna say this, and some coaches will probably disagree, but coaches are extremely sensitive. So there is ways to bring information to coaches. The number one thing before you bring something to a coach, and this is a cheat sheet, make sure your child's behavior aligns with what you're about to advocate for your student athlete. Because if the child is a problem inside of school, if the child is an issue, in class, being in the hallways, easy dismissal of whatever the claims are because the coach will be able to say, "Hey, he's not doing what he needs to do in the school building." The next piece that you wanna make sure you have your ducks in a line on is, attendance. So, when you have a kid who does not attend a lot of the workouts and he wants to go do his own thing with trainers and blah, 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 that also holds a weight for coaches and gives them the ability to not necessarily put your student athlete in the forefront. So you want to make sure your ducks are in a row before talking to a coach because he's going to try to do everything to tell you about your child's character of why things are not the way things are, need to be. Now, let's say your child and your student athlete checks all the boxes and he's done, his due diligence to make sure he's the model athlete on and off the field. First things first is set up meeting time. Do not roll on a coach immediately after a game, and do not roll on a coach immediately after practice because the narrative is going to be different because emotions are high after both, especially a game. Give a coach at least a 24-hour window before you decide to talk to him about what it is that your child is and isn't doing or what you want to see. Um, and if it is something that your child is doing wrong, or let's say your child is not on the field as much as you would like, the number one thing I would ask is take some time to either A, ask them on huddle, can you watch practice and see how practice is being ran if the coach has that capability? Because film kills all. Any issue that you have with a student athlete and he has film is going to tell you why he is or is not playing. Bottom line, I promise you that. If it's not being filmed, practice is not being filmed, then what you need to do is go ahead on and take yourself and leave work early. Go ahead on and watch a practice and see how your child is behaving. I've had situations where players are a complete goof on the sideline during practice, and then parents want to know why he's not playing in the game. The game is only you can only trust the player from their behavior in school and in practice. The game is not the time for me to try out whether or not I can trust the student athlete on the field. And I know parents think that a lot of coaches intentionally don't play kids, but a lot of the student athletes that you see out there, a big part of it is a trust factor. I have to trust that you can get these jobs done. This is why GPA is important. This is why electives are important. Doing things more than just playing football, being more involved. A coach wants to see a well-rounded person on the field because then it makes it more trustworthy. A lot of times when you don't see student athletes getting the play that they want, it's a trust issue because the job and the narrative is to win. And if I'm not winning, then or if your student athlete can help me win, then he's going to get on the field if he's doing his part. Now, do coaches hold vendettas? Well, I'll get into that in a minute. I got a couple more points before I get to that. Be realistic. Hold on, let me get my next point. Be realistic and help students realize all opportunities. Hey, man, here's something that is the biggest issue that I see in this process when we're talking about recruiting and all that. I'm D1. Who said that you're D1? What is that based on? Um, One way to find out if you're D1 caliber and there's certain schools that you want to go to and you feel as though you're D1 ready, watch the highlight tapes of the student athletes who are there before you. So if you are a quarterback, watch the film of the quarterbacks that were there before you. Watch the film of the whatever the position is that is there before you. Now, if your film does not align with their film, the likelihood of you matching what they're recruiting is slim unless they're looking to change something up. And most coaches have their style, have their philosophy, and recruit amongst that. So don't beat yourself up. Find the school that has the best opportunity for you first academically, second athletic. Do not look for a school solely based on your athletics. This is why you see such a traffic jam in the transfer portal because we're looking at schools for athletic opportunity versus looking at it at academic value. Find the sweet spot and the balance for both. That if a coach leaves, I'm still good. You know what I mean? If the coach decides that he doesn't want to be there, this is still the school I want to attend because they have my major or because they have XYZ. Because jumping in the transfer portal does not guarantee that you're going to get out of the transfer portal. So right now, I think it's about a 25% chance to get out of the transfer portal once you're in it. So be realistic about your opportunity. I always say go where you love and they love you. So if you love the school and the school loves you, then it's a fit. Notice I'm not saying if you love the coach and the coach loves you. If you love the school and the school loves you, that's where you want to attend. That's where you want to apply. That's where you want to put the effort in and tell the coach, hey, I've already applied. I've been accepted. I'm interested. Take an aggressive approach on that. Do not sit back and wait. Okay. Um, let's go into my next point so we can kind of wrap this up. I got to be realistic about all opportunities and hold on. Oh, the last one is hold on. It's be aware that parents' behavior can impact coaches' decisions and conversations behind closed doors. So please understand that parents, you can when you say, "Oh, can a parent hurt a student athlete?" Absolutely. Because there are not all coaches are able to handle the overbearing parent, and what they will do is allow you to talk your child off the field. And there are coaches who have vendettas against players. This exists. There's another reason why student athletes get inside the transfer portal. I don't like this guy. I don't like the way he's treating me. And unfortunately in high school, sometimes you're not able to move and go to other schools, so you got to deal with the guy that you got, right? Um but just know that respectfully, you want to always be able to once again make sure your student athlete has his ducks in a row on and off the field so that when you do approach a coach, you can you can really, engage in the conversation with those factors being off the table, which will disqualify, any coach's issue or problem. So that now you can find out if this problem is something that is direct, like it's a personal issue or a personal problem. And if you feel that it is a personal issue and that is a personal problem, then what you need to do is work the chain. So you have your conversation with your coach. After you have your conversation with your coach, if you don't see anything that is changing or anything like that, then you go ahead and you ask for a meeting with the coach and the athletic director. If you still don't see anything with the coach and athletic director, then you take that same conversation up to the administrator. But do your due diligence to make sure that you're at least giving the opportunity for any changes to be done. Um, and then also know when a college coach comes to the school, this is important. When a college coach comes to the school, the conversation is something like this. College coach, "Hey, how you doing, coach? How's everything?" "Yeah, these are the guys that I wanna see." "Okay." So then they already have an idea of who they wanna see. Rarely do you get the conversation of, uh, "Coach, who do you have?" When you do get those conversations of who do you have, a lot of times those are your smaller schools. Your bigger schools are going to come in with an idea of who they want to see, unless your coach advocates for you and says, "Well, I got another guy." Some guys, some coaches do it, some coaches don't. But most of the time, the D1, the bigger schools already have a list of guys that they want to see. So don't take it personal if your student athlete doesn't seem to be getting those opportunities. Also, make sure, please, pretty please, make sure your social media is up to date with contact information and everything like that. The reason why you want to make sure your social media is up to date is because that's the way that coaches can contact you before they contact the coach. You want them to get as much information about you before they talk to the coach or while they're talking to the coach so that the collegiate coach can filter out what is personal versus what is business. Once again, these guys aren't new to the game. This is not their first time in the rodeo. Most of them understand that there can be issues and problems with a player and a coach, and that they need to kind of weigh the odds of what's being told to them from the decision maker as mom or dad or gram or whomever the decision maker may be, and then also what coach is saying, and then also what player is saying. All that stuff mixes up and makes a gumbo, and then now we need to decide from there. Film also plays a part of what they see on film, and of course, the number one thing is going to be that transcript and grades. So, with that being said, this is just a quick little 30-minute video that I just wanted to do. Usually the podcast is an hour or so, but I don't want to talk your head off. These are my things. These are my red flags. Do I think Coach Prime was wrong? No, he wasn't. Do I think he could have said it a little differently? Yes, I do. Um, Coaches have their preferences. They're allowed to have their preferences because it's their program. You do not have to attend their school if you don't like their philosophy. So, if anything, to me, Prime may have hurt himself um, with people who may not like his philosophy. But I will tell you this: he is not the only coach who has those type of philosophies. So, if you are mad at Prime, do your research, and I promise you, you may find out that there are other issues and disparities and injustices and inequalities that you may see from coaches based on personal preferences. Like I gave my example of running back. Rarely do you see me with a running back that is below 5'8". I just, that's not my preference. So, with that being said, if you found something value here, just give me a like, give me a share. That also helps. Um, Along with, one second, these I am going to be having a boom, another recruitment readiness where we go into all these subcategories a lot deeper. This will be coming up May 5th at American Underground. So please keep your eye out for the link. And if there are any questions that you have, please do not hesitate to DM me. All my social media channels or First and Goal 365. So you can find me there, or you can find me, Coach Block, on any of my social media channels as well. And I would be glad to answer your questions. So, with that being said, you guys have a good night. And tune in tomorrow for the First and Goal podcast, the real edition where you get the bells and whistles. We have Coach Elijah Sessoms. He will be joining us, and we're going to be talking about building a culture, building a winning program, and building a culture. And we're bringing back the high school highlights. So tomorrow we will have our high school highlight, and I will hold on to that information until tomorrow. I want to kind of give you guys a surprise. And thank you for tuning in. And as always, do not compare. Your process is not the same. Make sure you compete. And peace.
I take cash out, Venmo, Zelle, EBT. Ooh, yeah, Lord. Bring me my money. Oh.
Peace. Cash App is Big 31. BIGG 3131. Peace.